They found me curled up behind a rack of servers, dozing in a busted recliner I dragged in from home. My back felt like it had been cracked with a bat, ball cap pulled low, hands still resting on the keyboard. I didn't hear them come in, didn't care. The click of heels was my first warning. Not sneakers, not boots, heels. Too loud for a data center. "Excuse me," she said, clipboard in hand like she was inspecting a restaurant kitchen. "Are you the one keeping these systems up?" I cracked one eye open. "You tell me." She blinked like I'd farted in church. "We've been trying to get a hold of IT. You just did. Quick note. Before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" That was how the new VP of Ops met me. I hadn't been in a meeting for weeks. Nobody saw me in the lunchroom. My badge hadn't scanned at the front entrance since June. They didn't know I'd rerouted my access point through the back door of the warehouse, where nobody checked logs. But while they were sipping espresso and playing with Slack emojis, I kept the engine running. No outages, no missed tickets, no unpaid invoices. Everything ran cleaner than a hospital hallway. I was the ghost in the wires, the reason the lights stayed on. And I did it all half dead on gas station coffee and rage. I didn't look like a genius. I looked like a burned-out 42-year-old in jeans, hoodie, and a $5 ball cap. I was one missed shower away from feral, but every server heartbeat, every cron job, every vendor handshake, all of it flowed through code I wrote at 3 a.m, with my eyeballs twitching. She left that day without saying thanks, just tapped something on her iPad and kept moving. Didn't matter. I went back to my console, stretched my spine until it popped, and patched a kernel update nobody asked for but everybody needed. 5 weeks later, they fired me over Zoom. The invite came from Ethan, mid-tier manager. Smooth voice, soft jaw, the kind of guy who uses hair product and calls it product. Smile like he learned it off LinkedIn. He looked almost proud when he said it. "You were too efficient." I didn't blink. "Too efficient?" "You automated yourself out of a role," he said, like it was a win for both of us. I nodded, didn't argue, didn't explain. What I didn't say was simple. The system only runs because I let it. And now, I was about to let it die. The second I left that Zoom call, HR sent over a checklist like I was turning in a library book. "Clear your inbox, return all hardware, exit interview optional." Optional, my ass. Slack dropped me by noon, no warning. Just a spinning wheel, and then you've been signed out. Email, gone, VPN access, disabled, badge deactivated. I couldn't even microwave my lunch because the cafeteria scanner ran on the same credentials. But here's what they didn't know. 6 months earlier, right after Ethan told me, we all have to tighten our belts, I started embedding a failsafe in every critical automation script. A single line of logic, quiet, elegant, untraceable. I called it Bluebird. The trigger? My user account deactivation. At 12:31 p.m., the moment they killed my credentials, Bluebird woke up. By 3 p.m., the ticketing system started glitching. Duplicate entries, timeouts, strange email threads bouncing back. HR bots that usually ping new hires with training modules started spitting out empty emails and broken links. By 4:15, payroll dropped connection to its bank API. Mid-payroll cycle. Mid-withdrawal batch. Money hung in limbo. Some employees got double paid. Some got nothing. At 5:03, the CRM backend burped up raw HTML into client dashboards. Instead of lead tracking, they got page code and developer notes. One exec clicked the client profile and got a blank screen that said, "Chiefs, fix this later." That was mine. Ethan called the first time at 5:26. I let it ring. He called again at 5:38, then 6:10. Then he texted, "Need to urgently consult you. Please respond, urgent." I muted my phone and opened my logs. Bluebird was doing exactly what I designed it to do. Unravel slowly, piece by piece, like pulling one stitch in a sweater until the whole damn thing came apart in your hands. They thought I was a script monkey, a button pusher. What they didn't see was the invisible web I built behind every dashboard and process. Their entire workflow was my handwriting, my logic, my fingerprints. By the time the office lights shut off that evening, 47 systems had minor to moderate errors. 7 were fully down. 3 had entered recursive loops, one of which spammed the C-level inboxes with hundreds of password reset requests. I poured a drink and waited. At 6:40, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, probably him. I took a slow sip of scotch, let it go to voicemail. When I finally checked it, his voice cracked like a freshman giving a speech. Hey, Alex, listen, I think there might be some residual configurations from some of the automations you owned. We're seeing unexpected behavior in multiple systems. No blame, obviously. Just hoping you can jump on a quick call. Residual configurations. That's what they called it. I clicked delete and shut my phone off. I cracked open a beer at midnight and watched their servers buckle in real time from my couch. Old ThinkPad on my lap, logs scrolling like a slow-motion train wreck, CPU spikes, memory leaks, queues backing up like a clogged toilet. Someone inside panicked and tried to restore a backup labeled final.zip. I actually laughed. That file, total bait. Inside it was a false recovery shell I wrote during a weekend bender. Looked real on the surface. Underneath, it rerouted half their file structure into a sandbox and dropped them into a mirrored instance of the staging environment. With none of the actual data, the cherry on top, I slipped a redirect into the internal wiki index. The whole thing now forwarded to Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. Autoplay, max volume, no skip. Juvenile, maybe. But after 15 years of thankless work, a little pettiness felt earned. By 2 a.m., ticket volume hit 4,000 and counting, mostly duplicates, most of them flagged urgent. Their endpoint detection platform, offline, version control, bricked, size log aggregation, full of garbage timestamps and debug strings I planted to look like hardware issues. Wild goose chases. At 3:11 a.m., someone rebooted a sandbox VM thinking it was prod, slapped a new patch on top of a corrupted restore file, and called it a fix. That only accelerated the damage. The help desk front end started showing users their own ticket numbers scrambled into alphanumeric soup. I kept watching. Not because I hated them. That would have been too easy. This wasn't revenge. This was architecture. They fired the builder and forgot the blueprints. By sunrise, it was chaos. HR couldn't process new hires. Legal had lost access to the contract repository. The compliance team kept getting calendar alerts every 12 minutes for meetings that didn't exist. The shared drive lit up with documents missing titles. Project folders renamed things like Maybe This One V2 or Do Not Delete, I Swear. I sipped my second beer and leaned back in the recliner. At 7:42 a.m., Ethan finally emailed me again. Subject, following up Alex. We understand there may be some critical dependencies tied to your work. Leadership is open to discussing terms. Please let me know if you're willing to re-engage constructively. Constructively, he said. I muted the thread and archived the whole conversation. He still didn't get it. This wasn't about bringing me back to save them. This was about the system reminding them who built it. The worst part? I hadn't even touched external services yet. This was all internal bleed, infrastructure decay. Failing upward, one missed dependency at a time. Some junior engineer spun up a diagnostics tool around 8:30 a.m. I watched it scan the wrong servers, then freeze mid-query. That tool was 3 versions behind. I made sure of it. At 9:05, someone tried to roll back the CRM manually, triggered a script I had hidden in a system notes file. Archive, log, 0426.txt, harmless name. Inside, 10,000 lines of self-referencing recursive variables that forced a hard shutdown. Slack messages poured in by the second. People asking what happened, pointing fingers. The blame game spread faster than the actual bugs. At 10:11 a.m., I got another email. Same subject line, new tone. Alex, I'm escalating this to executive leadership. They're willing to offer compensation for a consulting role. We just need things stable. Please advise. Still polite. Still begging. I closed my laptop. They could keep guessing. Let the whole thing breathe without me. Back when things were still calm, maybe 6 months before they showed me the door, I asked for a raise. Not a big one, just something that matched what I'd saved them. $2.1 million a year, net. I had the data, clean spreadsheets, month-over-month charts, projections, all laid out. Ethan didn't even open the file. He sat back in his chair like he was about to teach me something. Smiled like he'd read a book once about leadership. Teamwork matters more than code, he said. That was the moment I knew. I nodded, left his office, and started writing fail-safes that night. They weren't flashy. Nothing that tripped alarms or set off alerts. These were quiet bombs. Lines of code tucked inside utilities nobody audited. Scripts disguised as cron jobs or formatting tools. A handful were duds, just there to waste time if anyone got curious. But the good ones? Those were my masterpiece. Lunch order/script.js. That one was my favorite. Sounded like it handled the internal food pre-orders. Nobody questioned it. Underneath, it controlled 3 back-end workflows: vendor scheduling, report batching, and time zone sync for cross-region meetings. You pull that script without knowing what you're doing, meetings start showing up in the middle of the night, and vendor invoices miss payment windows. And then vendors stop delivering. No one noticed, because no one ever bothered to look deeper than the file name, just like no one ever looked at me. That script, and a dozen like it, all tied into Bluebird, the spine of everything. Auto-sorting failed, bots misrouted tickets, staff assignments skipped escalation rules, contracts didn't generate IDs, all subtle stuff. But it piled up. Meanwhile, Bluebird logged everything, every insult, every meeting where someone else took credit, every ignored ticket, every urgent that sat in the queue for 5 days because nobody wanted to admit they didn't understand the tool. I trained that AI like it was a dog, not smart enough to think, just smart enough to watch. And it watched. When Karen in finance told Ethan I was prickly, Bluebird noted the timestamp. When the intern made a dashboard using my template and presented it like his own, Bluebird screen capped the activity log. When Ethan called me replaceable during a one-on-one, Bluebird transcribed it word for word off the Zoom call I wasn't invited to, but had back-end access to anyway. Every time someone clicked mark as resolved on a ticket I'd flagged as incomplete, Bluebird made a copy and stored it. They never saw it collecting, because I never gave them a reason to. I showed up, I delivered, I smiled just enough to stay under the radar. That was the trap. I never looked dangerous until I disappeared and took the oxygen with me. Friday hit like clockwork. Client day. Their favorite day to pretend they were high functioning. Demos, performance stats. Look how seamless this all is. Smoke and mirrors. At exactly 9 a.m., I pushed a silent update through an old staging route they forgot to delete. That endpoint had been my emergency hatch for years. It didn't even show up on audit logs. 16 tiles, 16 clients, 1 line of text. Why your service just got slower. No logo, no brand colors, just a black tile with white font. When clicked, a video auto-played. Me, plain, no filter. Same hoodie, same dead eyes from the server room. Hi, you've used my work every day for the last 5 years. As of this morning, it's running 67% slower. Why? Because they remove me. That's it. No music, no edits. Just the truth. First response came at 9:17. Client from Atlanta, Healthcare Data Group, one of the top billers. They emailed the board, "We're losing sync with our EHR integration. Reinstate him or we're gone." By 10:12, a private equity firm out of Chicago chimed in. Their tile had already timed out twice. They didn't even ask questions. Just forwarded the video with the subject line, "Is this real?" It was. By 11:06, 3 more clients had reached out. 2 were pissed. 1 was full-blown legal. Their billing APIs had started returning incomplete line items. Half of them thought it was their fault until they all saw the same tile. Same message, same tired voice. That's when the panic calls started. Blocked numbers, unknown IDs, burner phones probably. I didn't answer a single one. They thought this was the punishment. It wasn't. This was just proof of concept. I hadn't even touched the external integrations yet. Their holy grail, the glue between them and their paying partners, that was phase 2. See, their whole product line depended on external bridges. ERPs, CRMs, real-time dashboards, warehouse tracking, invoice pipelines. I'd built all of it, and I'd left behind just enough friction in the system that with me gone, it would look like a third-party problem. Delayed syncs, dropped webhooks, buried tokens that expired on random intervals I hard-coded in as experimental. They had no idea what was internal or external anymore. That's the thing about automations. Once you set them loose, people stop understanding what they're relying on. By noon, my inbox was full. Please respond ASAP. We're open to a retainer conversation. Name your rate. What will it take to reverse this? Ethan even tried calling again, left a voicemail this time, voice low. Sounded like he hadn't slept. Alex, we're trying to get ahead of this. We understand your concerns and, honestly, we're open to any suggestions you might have. The board is aware. They're listening now. Now they were listening. Not 6 months ago when I showed them the numbers. Not when I saved them millions. Not when I built them a digital spine and asked for a seat at the table. Now, when the machine slowed down and clients started pulling the plug. Good. Let it hurt a little. Around 9 p.m., there was a knock on my door. Not loud, not casual either, measured. Like someone practicing how not to look desperate. I didn't move at first, just watched through the peephole. There she was, Camille Drake, Vice President of Operations, Queen of Performance Reviews and Passive-Aggressive Praise. She held a gift basket like it was radioactive. Cheap bottle of Merlot poking out the top, next to crackers nobody eats and a block of off-brand cheese. She looked like someone who finally read the source code and got scared. I opened the door halfway. "Did you bring severance?" I said, "or just sympathy?" She blinked like I'd slapped her. "I didn't realize how deep you were embedded." Wrong answer. I stepped aside and held the door open. "Come see for yourself." She hesitated, then walked in slow, like she expected tripwires. Honestly, not a bad instinct. I led her past the kitchen to the back room. My setup was still running. Sticky notes across the walls, diagrams taped corner to corner, logs scrolling down a vertical monitor like a digital confession. Bluebird was open on the main screen, dashboard glowing soft green, humming like a heartbeat. I didn't say anything. I just hit play. First clip, Ethan, Zoom call. He's smart, but we've got younger guys who can document this stuff. Second clip, HR, office whisper, hot mic. It's a strategic reduction. He's not going to make noise. Third clip, Camille's own voice, her voice, boardroom audio. He's useful, but let's not overplay his value. We can replace the scripts. He won't make noise. She stood there frozen, lips pressed tight, arms still holding that ridiculous basket. "Still think I'm replaceable?" I asked. She set the basket on the floor, quiet, like it might shatter. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just listen." I flipped to the next screen, the internal dependency map. Color-coded, red lines crawling through the system like vines strangling a house. Everything they touched, everything they thought was modular, showed up as a node tied to my scripts. Payroll, inventory, compliance, BI dashboards, client APIs, the AI pipeline, even the badge readers. All roads led to Bluebird. "This isn't a tantrum," I said. "It's a memory." Camille swallowed. I could see her do the math in her head. If she made the wrong move now, it wouldn't just be embarrassing. It'd be public. "You want your job back?" she asked. I laughed. "No, I want control." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to the screen, stared at the logs, and whispered like she was praying. "I didn't know they did this to you." I turned to face her. "You did. You just didn't think it'd matter." She looked up, guilty, cornered, human. "All right," she said. "Let's talk." I opened a drawer and pulled out a printed list of terms, bound, labeled, already signed by me. She reached for it. I pulled it back an inch. "I show mercy," I said. "Not weakness." She nodded. I handed it over. By the time she left my apartment, Camille looked 10 years older and twice as careful. Saturday morning, my inbox lit up. Subject line, "Restoration of privileges. Urgent." They gave me full access again. Everything. Root, DevOps, CI, CD. Credentials I hadn't even used in 2 years suddenly reactivated. Like I was just going to slip back in and quietly fix their disaster. Idiots, I didn't fix. I recalibrated. First thing I did was flip Bluebird back on, clean restart, logged everything. Then I cleaned the core, wiped junk triggers, restored sanity to the queues, resynced the broken client portals, patched the vendor scripts that had been bouncing for 2 days. I didn't fix it all. I left a few itches behind, not bugs, reminders. Like the weekly report that now included a line labeled "Alex was right," or the internal system monitor that flashed a red banner if CPU hit 97%, with a pop-up that said, "Bet you wish I was still invisible." Petty? Yeah. But petty works when you're right. Around 2:30 p.m., the CEO called me. I let it go to voicemail, then played it twice. Alex, this is Mason. I'm told you've restored critical stability. Good. Read the attached statement. It's going to the board Monday. Your terms are acceptable. I smiled. He sounded like someone trying real hard not to sound afraid. The document was already in my inbox. PDF, neatly written, legal scrubbed, final, didn't matter. I already had a backup copy. Mine was time-stamped 2 weeks ago, signed, notarized, and buried in their shared drive under a training folder marked Onboarding for Interns. I spent the rest of the weekend cleaning what mattered and ignoring what didn't. Come Monday morning, I walked into the building. Front door, badge scanned green. Elevator welcomed me by name. It felt quiet, not peaceful, stunned quiet. Like a hospital after a code blue. First person I saw was Ethan. Outside the fourth-floor conference room, pale, lips tight, holding a notebook like it was a bulletproof vest. He didn't say hi, just stood, stared, and muttered, "I'll be reporting to you starting Monday." I didn't stop walking. "No," I said over my shoulder. "You'll report to Camille. She's 23 and twice as useful." I saw the flinch. He deserved it. I made my way to the war room, used to be called the Operations Hub, now just Alex's room. A smartass in IT renamed it Friday night, and no one corrected it. I logged in. Bluebird chirped green. Status, optimal. Incident queue, cleared. Clients, stable. I opened Slack. Camille had already set the tone. Team, effective immediately. All questions about core workflows, pipelines, or failovers go through Alex. If you don't know him, get familiar. One reply under it. About time. CEO Mason messaged me directly a few minutes later. Ready for today? I replied with a single line. Already started. I didn't bother dressing up. Just khakis, a clean polo, and the same ThinkPad I'd used to gut their infrastructure. Monday morning, 11th to sharp, I walked into the boardroom. 12 people. Half of them stiff, the other half pretending they'd always been on my side. Camille was the only one who looked steady. She didn't smile, didn't flinch. Just gave a small nod and sat down. I didn't bring slides, didn't need them. I booted up the prototype and turned the screen around. "This is what you need," I said. "A clean platform, modular, self-monitoring, secure, built to scale, run smooth, and survive turnover." CTO Victor leaned forward. He already knew what was coming. "Where's the team interface?" one of the suits asked. "There isn't one," I said. "It doesn't need hand-holding. It needs people who understand systems, not people who need to click a reset button when something blinks red." Another board member tried to push in. "So, are you proposing we rehire you to manage this?" I shook my head. "I'm not coming back as an employee. I'm coming back as a partner." Silence. Not shocked, just careful. Like they knew saying the wrong thing would send the logs back into chaos. Victor nodded once. "Approved." No debate, no vote. They knew. They broke it, and I'd rebuilt it. Cleaner, smarter, stronger than anything they'd had before. And this time, it came with boundaries. I laid out the terms. 1, I ran my own department, my hires, my budget, no middle managers. 2, I didn't report to HR or ops. I reported directly to the board. 3, I was guaranteed a percentage of annual savings tied to my automations. I didn't ask for trust. I built something they couldn't live without. Meeting adjourned. On the way out, I passed Ethan's new desk, a tiny corner spot by the copier, wedged between a column and a file cabinet that hadn't been opened since 2014. No nameplate, no window, just a single monitor and a blinking Slack icon. He didn't look up, but I knew he saw me. A ping popped up on his screen. Camille. Summarized the outages for Alex before EOD. I kept walking, same hallway, same floors. But everything had shifted. By the time I got back to my new office, actual office, not a server room hideout, the nameplate was already installed. Alex R. Langston, Systems Architecture and Continuity Partner. Yeah, I changed my name in the system too. That night, I sat back in my chair. Not the recliner. This one was ergonomic, leather, expensive. Still had the tag zip-tied to the base. Monitors glowing, systems humming, Bluebird chirping happy green across every dashboard. No alerts, no spikes, no flameouts, just clean code doing what it was built to do. Outside, the city moved like nothing happened. Cars pushing through traffic, buses hissing at red lights, people glued to phones like their world hadn't almost collapsed 2 days ago. Inside, the company finally had a memory. Me. The board had ratified my charter, not just approved it, but formalized it. They stamped it into policy. I wasn't a contractor. I wasn't a vendor. I was the person they called before anyone touched a live system. I picked my team. 5 names, no recruiters, no interviews, just people I trusted. People who understood this wasn't about hierarchy. It was about clarity. One platform, one chain of command, one spine, mine. I set my own hours, wrote my own contracts, kept Bluebird close but never locked it up again. If anyone wanted to know how the engine worked, they could read the docs. I finally wrote them. Ethan, still employed, still embarrassed, still spelling redundant with 2 A's in JIRA tickets. He stopped trying to make eye contact. Camille didn't. She passed me in the hallway earlier and said, "They finally understand." I told her, "They better." Because I didn't destroy their system. I reprogrammed its spine, line by line, wire by wire, until every process, every dependency, every heartbeat traced back to a single truth. Respect isn't optional. Now, my name sits at the top of every architecture diagram, not as a ghost, but as the man who reminded them that memory matters, and that every system has one final dependency: the person who built it.